And welcome into today's webinar brought to us by Force Marketing. I'm Joe Gum. The webinar is titled Audience First, Everything Else Second, selecting the right audiences for your dealership across all mediums to increase your marketing efficiency. Again, I'm Joe Gum, a reporter and anchor for CBT News. Alongside me is Eric Mercado, VP of Business Development for Force Marketing. How are you, man?
I'm good. No complaints. How you doing?
Your bio is right here. We could go down the line. It would take 10 minutes to talk about everything you've done. Let's talk about some of those 10 years of automotive marketing experience. Right, you've been doing this for a long time. You're a regular speaker at the CBT Conference and Expo, NADA, 20 groups, digital dealer, JD Power events. You're all over the map. You travel everywhere, including 1,000 dealerships. You have consulted and you've served these clients. So, people are ready to hear about this, and you're the perfect person to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the time, and obviously over 10 years, and with the amount of dealerships there are in the country, those numbers are very realistic to digest. So, it's been a good run.
Today's Valentine's Day, so if you would, share the love on this great topic people are interested in.
Yeah, of course. So today, my goal is to really cover what I feel like most dealerships struggle with as it pertains to their advertising planning. And one of the most common things that we hear when we go to speak to dealerships in our initial consultation phase is that they don't necessarily know how well is their advertising working, which mediums are performing the best, and for the most part, who they should even market to. We found that the struggle is, for lack of a better term, real, because they're running at 1,000 miles a minute. They have people pulling them all these different directions. And a lot of times they're allocating the advertising priorities to one person. This is your responsibility. You handle this. And that person is at the same time doing 4 or 5 other jobs. So what we have found is we have a strategy. It's somewhat unique that we've adopted over the last couple years. But it's worked really, really well, and it's paid dividends for our accounts. My goal with this webinar is to really show you guys how our strategy, which can easily be adopted by you and your own dealerships, can help you increase leads, and by leads I mean form fills and phone calls, decrease your marketing budget, right? Eliminate a tremendous amount of advertising waste, reduce vendors. A lot of dealers are still using too many vendors sometimes to manage the same mediums. Increase sales and service by decreasing your ad expense, increasing your ROI. Track activity and engagement through these mediums, and then also be able to tell you that it's important that everything that you spend your dollars on, you can see real-time results. We are in the now era. You should be no different than anybody in your family when it comes to ordering something off of Amazon off their mobile phone. You should be able to see, how is my advertising working right now on my mobile phone or any other device that I use on a daily basis. And if you're working with providers right now, whether it be one advertising provider or 21 advertising providers, you need to be able to go back and audit them and make sure they're giving you these results in as real time as possible. You got to be able to measure your ROI to identify if it's useful for you. That being said, I'll get started. In 2016, we had a really good run. It's the best year in company history. We grew substantially, and a lot of it had to do with our approach to the market. So one of the things that we often do is we survey our clients to identify, across 400 or 500 now, what are your biggest challenges? And one of the questions that we asked is, what's the first thing you focus on when creating an advertising plan? Now, this was amongst dealer principals, general managers, chief marketing officers, marketing directors, even some agency partners that we have, account executives. Just to identify, what do they do first? What do they think is most important? What we did was we gave them 4 different options for answers, right? Because it really can be summarized within these 4 options. And we said, is it the right audience the first thing you should focus on? Is it the right creative? What's the message you're putting out to the market? What does it look like? Does it resonate with the market? Is it the right set of mediums? Or is it the right budget? What are you allocating to these advertising mediums? What we found was actually pretty shocking. And it's, for the lack of a better term, an older way of thinking about marketing, but almost half, 49% of the dealers surveyed, said that the right creative was the most important thing to focus on when strategically planning for your advertising. And we have a completely different way of thinking. And our thinking is much more the right audience first. And it's very simple when you break it down to its simplest form, right? Like, I'm sure your mother or father at one point in time told you KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
Right? We try to do the same thing.
Well, when you go back to that, were you finding out that it's because of marketing, because of, of agencies are telling the dealers this is how it should be with the creative?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the funny part. So a lot of marketing companies out there and agencies, traditional agencies, digital agencies, whatever, they don't necessarily promote the strategy of how they're going to get the results. What they promote is what they're going to send out and what's going to immediately get traction.
Right.
And how that's worked for this dealer in Vallejo, California, even though they're talking to a dealer in Newark, New Jersey, right?
Right.
There's a big difference with those two different markets, right? And there's different value propositions that resonate with those markets. One might be heavy lease penetration. One might be heavy purchase penetration. One might be focused more on a domestic market, heavy Hispanics. One might be predominantly Caucasian. If you don't do the necessary research up front to identify which audiences make the most sense for your dealership in your location, you're missing the boat. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to spend a lot of dollars on marketing and mediums and messages that don't deliver ROI.
Fall flat.
Yeah, pretty much fall flat. So when a dealership comes to us and they say, well, I've kind of hit my plateau, I know I get about 1,100 leads a month. I sell about 200 cars. Close between 20 and 22% of my leads that come in. I spend about $100,000 to do so, and it's just, that's where I'm at. That's where I've been. I've been that way for a year. Those are the best case scenarios for us because we can come in and immediately identify waste. You're spending $100,000. Your cost per lead is X. Your cost per conversion is Y. All we really have to do is reverse engineer that. Identify what your cost per lead is. Make that lower. Identify your cost per conversion, make that lower. If you close at your traditional closing percentage of 20%, Mr. Dealer, and you don't spend another dollar more than you are, you just reallocate your advertising to the right audiences, you're gonna get a better return on investment. So, funny thing is when we put this slide in front of dealers sometimes, and I have it kind of on hand, is it really resonates with them. So you're saying that the creative is the biggest challenge that you're having. You don't have the right creative hitting the market. Who are you sending it to? If the creative was amazing and you agreed and everybody on your staff agreed it was the best creative they had ever seen, the best message, who are we sending it to?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
That's the best answer. I want to hit everybody in my market with this creative. But is that efficient?
Not at all.
Or is it wasteful?
Yep.
So with all the different technologies that we have and all the different data providers that we have in the space, it's so easy to identify that this creative would resonate well with this particular type of audience, right? Consumers coming out of lease, consumers in trade cycle, right? Domestic owners because they're the top cross-shop vehicles in market. But the problem is it takes research and it takes time to really put together a strategic ad plan. There are companies in the space that do it, and there are some that do it wrong, there are some that do it right. But it's really hard for one person to be able to do this for any company. There's a lot of resources needed.
And do you think that's why it's always been, well, that seems difficult, so let's just do what we've been doing for 25 years.
Yes.
Just stick out this and just go with it.
Yeah, it's not broken, so don't fix it.
Right.
That's the method, right? I'm number 5 in my region, I'm doing well. The factory, helps me with inventory.
Yeah.
As long as I stay between that 200 and 220 cars total, 75, 25 new to used, I'm good.
That sentence that kills businesses. Well, that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way we're going to do it. So.
Exactly. And I would bring up the another quote, not to be cheesy, but anybody who's watched a sales promotional speaker, I'm not going to name it, there's a billion of them in our industry, what got you here won't get you there. Right? So with the way that marketing has evolved, there's a way to identify wasteful spend, and we do that really well. And there's a lot of tools that I'll show you today that can help you do that as well. The second most popular answer was the right mediums. The right mediums is the most important thing when it comes to creating an advertising plan. Well, why? Why are those the right mediums? Is that the question that you're asking the people that are promoting it to you? When somebody calls me and says, hey, Eric, I'm a vendor, I provide this platform that ties into your Facebook products, and you guys should use us. I go, why? Why?
Because it'll be good.
Well, because it's worked so well for other providers
Right.
like you guys. Okay, cool. How does that work specifically for me? Do you know anything about the dynamic of my business and how I sell our product? How do we promote our product? What's the message that we promote to our clients? What's our true value proposition? Have you asked any of those questions? No, the first conversation we've had is, I should buy your product, but I don't necessarily know why. Now, if you showed me a result from another agency that said, well, they were able to increase their clients' Facebook conversion rates by 22% across the board, and here was the strategy they used, and that mimicked mine, it made a little bit more sense to me then. Now I'm a little bit more interested. Otherwise, I'm gonna ask you why. Why should I buy your product? And that's a question that you should all ask vendors when they're promoting. Why should I buy your product?
But also keep vendors accountable. Because like you said, sometimes they'll just go, dealers will go and not even check. Or you ask that first question, what's working for you? Well, I don't know what's working for me.
No.
Maybe they're not getting that, back and forth with the vendor.
You're right.
And maybe the vendor doesn't want to go back and forth.
You're right. So I 100% agree. A lot of it's like, you know what, it makes sense. I have this allocated to this medium. Let's just try it. And that's cool. Trial and error is part of marketing, right? Identifying waste is all through trial and error. So the third was actually the right budget. People think that the right budget, I need to allocate $30,000 to paid search. Why? Because there's a guy that I know who allocates $30,000 to paid search and he's doing great with it. And that's awesome for that particular guy, his particular brand, his particular market. But how do you know if that's good for you? So I'd ask you, where should I spend my money? And then follow that up with the first question, why? So finding the right audiences is actually a lot easier than most people think. Companies like us, we keep it to its simplest form, and we go to our clients and we say, here's who you're targeting, here's where we're going to send the marketing, here's what the messaging is going to be, here's when it's going to be in homes, here's why this campaign makes sense for your dealership based off the value propositions you have. And then, by the way, if you want to identify how it's working, here's the tool that you can log into in real time and see how all these different mediums are performing for you right now. In real time, we can tweak things, we can identify your ROI, we can identify if it makes sense to continue that medium and that spend and that message.
We learned this in 7th grade English, right?
You did.
Who,
this
what,
is
when, where, how.
The simplest, the simplest things make the most sense even at our professional career level in advertising. And I feel like we overcomplicate things. Dealerships right now have limitless technology at their hands. I walked through NADA a couple weeks ago and was blown away by some of the booths that I saw, us being guilty of it in the past, and all the different technologies that were being promoted and their usages and how they can help evolve dealerships' businesses, a lot of them being similar, a lot of them having one component of another. But what I didn't notice was anybody promoting anybody else's product, right? There was nobody in the booth saying, hey, we do this, but they do this really well too.
Right.
You should probably go to both of us, or use me for this and use them for that. It's more so, let's get as much as we possibly can from you for my medium.
Exactly.
Versus why? Why does that spend make sense? And speaking to about 22 different dealer groups myself throughout that 2 or 3 day period, a lot of the questions I was being asked were not why. And I wanted to provide the why this would make sense for you, why this media makes sense for your dealership, right, in Pensacola, Florida. Why it makes sense for your dealership in Miami, Florida, being a Toyota dealership in a high volume Hispanic market. Why does Facebook make sense for you? So that's something that I want to go over. I want to go over 6 steps. Six questions really you should simply ask when creating your advertising plan to every single provider that you have. And really what you can do to kind of somewhat identify your target audience before you ever even get to your provider. So if we're talking about March right now, which most dealerships are because they're a couple weeks in advance, they start planning for the next month, identify now who your audience is, okay? Companies like us, we use 30 plus big data providers, multiple API integrations, limitless technology, enterprise level partnerships to identify this makes sense for this dealership.
If you're having to show up at a dealership, do you think that dealership knows at that point who their audience is? And do you find yourself going, okay, first you want to help? Okay, well, we'll help you find that, even if they don't know, because they've done it the old school way of just throwing it out there to everyone.
Yeah. I think that what's funny is, so I've been in 4 in-office or in-dealership meetings in the last 3 weeks with decent-sized clients of ours, and different dynamics. I was with a dealer principal who'd been in the business for over 60 years. And he had pinpointed who his demographic was, and he had done it through traditional means of tracking inbounds and walk-ins and floor traffic. And he said, this is who I sell. Here are the zip codes I sell it in. Here's what the message that resonates with him. He had it dialed, and it was very impressive. And I said, how did you identify all this? Literally trial and error over the last 20, 30 years.
Right.
and people coming in, and everybody gets surveyed, and everybody gets asked these 5, needs analysis questions before they ever even get demoed or they ever talk about products. And I tracked that in this system, and the system was like a spreadsheet, and it was very impressive. It was impressive because he didn't need all these bells and whistles to identify who his core customer was. Now, I said, you know what? I questioned it kind of. I said, let's see what my analyst department did. What they found when they audited your marketing. It's funny. He was spot on.
Good.
I also met with.
But that's rare.
Yes, it was good. It was great.
Yeah.
I also met with a CMO of a 24 dealership group, and he literally said, here's who the factory tells us to market to by franchise, by market. Here's who we market to by franchise, by market. And in that scenario, I said, well, are the factory's objectives your objectives? Is that the only thing you care about? Because if it is, then that makes the most sense, right? You want to increase sales efficiency in those zips. He said, no, we have our own set of objections. Cool. Well, you're going to need to go outside the box of what the factory promotes you to sell, and where to sell, and who to go after, and start feeding the beast with your own information, right? And take advantage of some of these technologies you use. He had little idea of who his core audience was, but he did know these are the markets I need to market into. So we use all these different partnerships that we have, and this is not to promote anybody else's product, but just for the sake of, we're using high level data, pushing it down a funnel to identify this makes the most sense. Here's an imprint of who we want to target: customers, in market, expiring leads, customers that live in the top zips that we sell and service. But dealerships have the ability to do that with literally 3 to 4 simple tools. I could talk about all the different data providers you guys already use, in the automotive space. But let's keep it to its simplest form, right? Keep it simple, stupid. So, the DMS. If you're a dealership that's been in business for longer than a year, you have limitless knowledge about who you sell and service. The CRM. You also have information now about where are you losing business once they come in. You're getting people to their dealership. You're getting people to convert to leads. But are they actually converting to sales or repair orders? If you're not measuring that on a monthly basis, and if you're not measuring that by market, if you're not measuring that by a model that's being shopped, just clicking a couple of buttons inside these tools that you guys pay thousands of dollars for a month, shame on you. Even if you were to put somebody to do only that in your dealership, you will learn so much about the audiences you need to be marketing to. Okay,
that's probably another webinar, but let's say there's a dealer that just heard that going, I don't know who should be checking that. That scares me because I don't know who should be checking that. Who should it be? I guess, like I said, that's probably a loaded question.
It is, and it's obviously different in every situation, right? You have these corporate entities that have multiple people in their ad departments, and multiple people have priorities by medium.
But you're seeing that it's not happening.
I'm saying for the most part, it's not happening at all. Still, to this day and age, it is not investigated prior to deciding who a marketing partner should be.
Gotcha.
Right? We go into a lot of different departments where different dealerships where we jump in and do an audit of their analytics, and they're getting traffic 40 miles away, and they haven't sold a car more than 20 miles away in the last 5 years. Realistically, sold a car. I mean, they've had some special orders or dealer trades, and that's astonishing to me. You're getting great impression share out there, but no one's coming in to buy from you because they got to drive past 4 other dealerships to get there, right? So there's some things that are very simple that jump out at you when you really investigate these. And if you've paid whatever you've paid on an annual basis for these platforms, your DMS, your CRM, you need to make sure you can utilize that to its fullest capacity. They're always evolving with the markets, from what I've seen, at least the good ones. They're always changing. They're always giving new reporting. They're always deep diving. They want to expose. They want to provide more transparency for people that you're spending money with. That's their job, right? So use it. Or, like you said, assign somebody to use it. What we found from some other third-party tools that are really basic, that come with pretty much anybody doing digital marketing, that work really, really well for the sake of the time of the webinar, that you should focus on are Google Analytics. Every single person in here who's doing any type of paid search or has a website has a Google Analytics account if you're doing anything via Google. And I would recommend that you're in it at least on a weekly basis, and that whoever your account manager is, whether it's internal or external, you have a weekly update of how everything's performing. Things like, where is my traffic coming from? What's my bounce rate? How many people are coming to my site and leaving? What's my time on site? Set goals associated with specific pages on your sites to showcase that customers are coming and they're landing to these pages that convert at the highest rates. So we're pushing them from A to Z the quickest we possibly can. If you have people landing on your home pages still, searching specifically for lead specials, there's a disconnect there in your advertising that's going to provide a higher bounce rate. really focus on what times a month do I get the most traffic organically, and then you can counterproductively focus on where should I spend the most money to kind of make up for that, right? From a paid perspective. All that information lives in Google Analytics. Google Analytics is the most transparent third-party platform that there is. It's scary to a lot of providers. We love it. You know, we have our own tool that showcases, it has an API with Google Analytics, but at the same time, we love it when a dealer shows us a snapshot of Google Analytics and points something out, and we can say, yeah, here's why that happened. And then Facebook. Facebook is, if not the next biggest thing in the automotive vertical, the biggest thing in the automotive vertical already. You know, $7 billion in ad revenue in a quarter is absolutely crazy. Those numbers are not matched by any other provider in our space. Mm-hmm. And I've been to multiple conventions and I've spoken with multiple Facebook partners that we have, and they're excited about their future and all the things they have coming down the funnel. We're already seeing great results with Facebook as an actual ad solution now versus just a social media tool for, you know, brand awareness, right? And a lot of it has to do with the way that you can segregate your audiences now and focus really on a specific audience and push a specific message creatively, contextually, with unique value propositions and buttons right there. So we'll touch on that. But let's start with the DMS. I really feel like the DMS to dealerships is kind of, well, the DMS tells me how many cars I sold.
Right.
Right? Tells me what I made on the deals themselves, front end, back end, right? Tells me how many vehicles I serviced. What we say is go to your DMS providers, whoever your rep is, every single one of you has one, and say, I need these 5 reports. I need them today. Typically they have them right there. They can click a button, provide PDFs or Excel spreadsheets. I need to find out what are my top selling and servicing zips dating back as far as 7 or 8 years. National change of address says 7 or 8 years is the most relevant. I need to identify where am I selling and servicing most of my vehicles. And then based off of what the numbers are that come back, rank them accordingly. Say I sold the most vehicles here, this would be a 1, maybe range it from 1 to 3. And say, this is a 1, this is my top selling zip. Here are my top 5 selling zips, they're all 1s to me. Okay, maybe my next 5 selling zips are all 2s, and then further down the funnel. Now the reason why you're gonna go back and rank those is because you should be spending in the areas where you have the highest potential to sell vehicles more than the areas where historically you haven't sold that many vehicles. Now I'm gonna reiterate that, because that kind of contradicts a lot of dealers' objectives, right? I want to go and sell more in this market, so I'm going to dump a bunch of money into it. But if historically speaking, you haven't sold in that market, you never have, does it make sense to promote too much or spend too much in that market for the lack of just getting impressions? And most of the time, it doesn't.
Well, what are they seeing that is opposite of what are they hearing? Why they need to advertise?
Dealers focus heavily, if they're focused on OEMs, sales efficiency,
okay.
Right? I want to make sure that my sales efficiency is increasing, that I'm increasing my market share. With all the new points coming up and going down, those numbers are changing on a monthly, quarterly basis for all these different dealers, and sometimes very, very big gaps, right? So what we see is dealerships really want to focus on zips where they feel like they should have a better market share, but they don't necessarily know why. A lot of times they might focus on captive ownership of franchise in that market. Like, I'm a Toyota dealer, this is a zip code that I have this sales efficiency and this sales penetration. I need to increase that because there's this many owners of the vehicle. But does it make sense to attack that market based off of your historical sales and service? Have you taken a lot of trades in from that market historically? You haven't, probably, right? If you have that wealth of knowledge, if you have a blueprint of your success, why would you ever divert from that? So, first report I want to ask you to ask your DMS provider is your top sales and service zip report. For the most part, most of these tools, I've worked with all of them, are completely agnostic to DMS providers, but they also have mapping tools that'll showcase where you're selling. So identify, get a map, get a good layout, a blueprint. Next thing I want you to focus on is what are the top trades that I take in on my dealership? So this is a challenge that in our consultation process, I always ask these dealers the same question. What are your top sales and service zips? Give me the top 10 of them. Normally they know about 4 or 5, right? So what are the top trades you've taken in the last year? Just give me the last year. Normally they'll know 1 or 2 of the top 5. This is information that's right at your fingertips. That's very important when it comes to your marketing. You know how to set up your inventory. You know how to set up cross-shopping campaigns or conquesting campaigns to go after specific vehicle owners. You can just identify historically who have we taken in on trades. You also know which inventory turns the most because you're probably selling those cars, whether it be retail or wholesale, pushing them back into the market and making a penny on them, right? It's a good part of the dealership's gross profit model. So let's identify our top, even if it's just the top 10 trades I want to focus on to limit the bandwidth of what I do. Let's focus on that. Once you've identified that, simply open up Google and then buy your top vehicles or all the vehicles you have in inventory, search those vehicles, and then put the word versus, and then see what pops up. This is the easiest, simplest, and most free way to identify your top cross-shop models. There are a tremendous amount of reports in there, including your Market Master report, including your not for the lack of a plug, but your IHS Polk reports and your JD Powers and all these different tools that we use. For the most part, they're very, very comparable, if not exact, to just opening up Google and searching the model and versus and seeing what pops up. Now, I know that when a consumer, the algorithm Google has in place, when a consumer is searching for that model in my market, because I'm searching for that model by my market,
right,
the algorithm shows the most relevant cross-shop brands are these. So that's showing that by the masses, these people are searching for, in this scenario, a Hyundai Sonata, and then they're cross-shopping a Honda Accord, a Toyota Camry, right, and a Elantra, one of my own comparable vehicles, a Mazda 6. So everything I do from a conquesting perspective, if I can get vehicle ownership information, I want to target those audiences. Everything I do on my website that talks about these specific models, the Hyundai Sonata, I want to show how it compares and beats, or it's better in class than the top cross-shop models. Because organically, my goal is to drive people to my site, get them to land on that page. And now, even if the Hyundai Sonata wasn't in their consideration set, maybe I can push them or prompt them to add it to their consideration set. It's pretty high funnel, works fantastic. It's very, very simple to do, right? So now here are my top.
Well, you're kind of giggling because it is simple, and these guys should be doing this, but unfortunately, they're not.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there are a lot that do. There are a lot that are very.
Or maybe the level.
It's the simplest things get overlooked, right? Because we have all these technologies and all these beautiful things that you walk down NADA main row and see. And historically speaking, the best way dealerships evolve their business is to throw money at it and figure out if the money sticks and if it provides an ROI. They have no problems. One thing I've noticed about our industry, and I love about our industry, dealers have no problems reinvesting in the growth of their business. Very little of them do. Majority of the time it pays off very, very well, which is why you see some of the richest people in the world, they're automotive dealership owners, right? Because they're very willing to reinvest. What we want to do is just make it simple for the people that manage your marketing from an internal or an external perspective to focus on the right audiences, right? So this is a great way to find out when people are shopping this particular model in my market, what are they cross-shopping with at the highest rates, right? Once you've gotten down to, here are my top zips that I sell and service. Here are the top trades that I take in. So now I know which vehicles to focus on by registration set. Here is the top cross-shop models. So now I need to focus on from a conquesting paid search or organic landing page campaign. You've now identified your audience, at least somewhat your audience. These are the people by vehicle registration or market that I need to spend my money on the most. And then since I've ranked all these sales and service zips accordingly, I know where to spend a little bit more money on those same audiences. Once you've identified that market, exclude the rest of the audiences and fish where the fish are. Now go to every single one of your service providers and ask them, hey, what am I doing right now in direct marketing that's targeting these audiences? What am I doing right now in mobile marketing that's targeting these audiences? What am I doing from social media that's targeting these audiences? And they should be able to very quickly show you what they've done historically and why they're already on it. Or they should be able to very quickly pivot and start focusing on those audiences, specifically with measurable mediums, things that I really want to hone in on today. The second question was a simple where. Where is my core audience located? And the majority of the time, what we find when we walk into a dealership is one of our consulting questions is, where are you marketing right now? They'll say about 20 or 30 mile radius, depending on the medium. I got cars.com, they're going out 30 miles. I got my paid search provider, they're going out 20 miles. And that's one thing you really need to leverage technology for. By ranking those zips, by priority, right, or what we'd like to call propensity, we can now say, where should we be spending our money? And we don't need to be marketing from a radius perspective anymore. Radiuses are outdated conceptually. They don't make sense. They're extremely wasteful. What we find is we'll take the historical sales and service data, drop it into our tool, and overlap it with the radius that they have predefined that they want to market to. And for the majority of the time, 1/5 of the people that they sell cars to in the markets they sell cars, they are not marketing to, because the radius doesn't hit those markets specifically.
Gotcha.
And then 1/5 of the people that they're marketing to, they do not sell cars to. So you got about a 24 to 25% waste factor
Oh boy.
of advertising. Now when you talk about a dealership spending $60,000 a month in advertising, and 24% of it is going on what we like to call deaf ears, right?
Right.
You are extremely wasteful, and you can see how if that ad budget was reallocated into mediums that you can measure and provide real-time ROI, you can immediately see an increase in your bottom line, which is really what this business is, a bottom line focused industry, and it still is to this day, regardless of what anybody says, one price selling, the conglomerates in the industry, it's still bottom line focused. When we dial in, what we like to do is go back to that Zip ranking report that you said, here's my top sales and service markets by Zip, and then basically just say, I'm gonna spend more for all my ones than I am for all my threes. It's a very simple concept. I'm gonna fish where the fish are. I'm gonna make sure I own those market shares. My overall sales efficiency is gonna increase in this market tremendously because I'm eliminating waste. No one's gonna sell in my backyard, right? Own your backyard. And for lack of a better term, own the areas where you sell and service the most. So this kind of represents that, how you should be marketing, right? Lighter colors representing places you spend a little bit less, darker colors representing where you sell the bulk of your vehicles, your ones, your top rank Zips. What we found is you can actually do this for sales and service, and they specifically look very similar in most cases, but what this will identify for you is commuter traffic, right? That's low level information you want to know. Are there a lot of people that live in a zip code 15 miles away that work in a city? Big is a big coincidence you see in like metro areas, right? Like if you're marketing in a Miami or you're marketing in Atlanta, where we're from, you'll see a lot of people coming from Alpharetta, 45 minutes north, but they get their service near Atlanta Metro,
Right.
Right? Because they do it during lunch. So those are things that you want to focus on, because now I'm going to implement a bid strategy that makes me increase my spend in the areas for service specifically where I'm getting heavy commuter traffic. Target them on any device that they're on.
How broad do you get though?
As far as services?
Okay, those we're going to concentrate the females
Yeah.
who come from Alpharetta, 45
Yeah.
minutes away, who have lunchtime at the service at the fixed ops department, or we're going to.
Yeah.
I mean, how far can you go? How far is the list of who you're hitting?
Yeah,
Does it depend?
if you looked at like a top prospect model for a dealership, I mean, it can go to what generation are they in,
Right.
what's their sex, what's their online shopping behavior, what's their vehicle equity, are they in trade cycle, when's the last time they serviced. We have limitless data points
Gotcha.
available, and all within those same 4 different products that I showed earlier, DMS, CRM, Google
Do you
Insights.
focus on?
We do. We don't focus on one audience, we focus on what we like to call the right audiences, right?
Right.
So if I notice that 20% of your business comes from millennials, our messaging is going to change. We're going to go maybe a little bit heavier on social. If I notice that 20% of your customers are Hispanic, the Hispanic population consumes Facebook at 6x the rate of any other population. So why would I not focus on putting messaging out on Facebook? I know that's where your audiences are shopping. And that's all identified from a dealer's historical
Gotcha.
sales, and then what the in-market audiences are that we identify are most parallel, that match the best. So the questions always end up being, what mediums? Because that's what somebody said. The right mediums is something you need to focus on with strategic market planning. And what mediums should we market with? Well, I can easily tell you that it's really hard to identify that without doing some trial and error. The average consumer still shops over 20 different touch points. They say about 24 during their online shopping, process cycle before they purchase a vehicle. You're talking anything from search engines to third party to OEM sites, and it literally starts with, hey, I just want to see what this looks like, to I want to see the features, to I want to see the, is there a dealership near me that's got a sale going on, to the pricing, all the way down to can I get my credit approved. So you're talking about all these different touch points. because there's no one single identified path to purchase for any customer, right? Different generations shop different ways. You and I might shop exactly the same way versus me and the guy behind the camera. So just to give you some insight, there's no way to identify a path to purchase until you identify your core audience. So the beautiful thing about it is your DMS gives that to you. So once you identify your core audience, then go back and identify the mediums that make sense for that audience. It's very simple. It's a very simple concept. It's all reverse engineering, which is really all successful marketing is. We know that from an online perspective, everything that I've learned in the last, 2 years from our Google partners and our Bing partners is that consumers are indulged in these micro moments. And your job as a dealership is to win the micro moments. They're consuming online video, they're searching online, they're looking at different things throughout their shopping process, but they're doing it in very small increments, right, that add up over time. So our goal is to win those micro moments. We need to win that first search. We need to win the video impression and make sure that the message is exactly the same. So I like to tell dealers, focus on micro moments. Focus on how you shop for cars, and then ask your daughter how she shops for cars, and then ask your son how he shops, and then ask your wife, and then ask a family member, and then ask people on your staff. And then when they all give you their answers, say, well, this is how they shop. How do I win those micro moments? And that's something that Google has built their entire platform on, is winning the micro moments and teaching dealers and teaching small businesses and large businesses on how to win the micro moments. 3 out of 5 of the top searched mediums that top advertising mediums that prompted consumers to start their automotive searching process were direct marketing, video advertising, so your YouTube, TrueView, programmatic video, mobile and tablet advertising, and then obviously search, right? These are the things where people started their process, identified something that said, you know what, maybe I'm in the market for a car. So for the sake of the webinar, I could go through all 24 different touch points, but I'd rather focus on the 3 that are most likely to convert for you. Make sense?
Yeah.
So let's start with direct marketing. As you saw on the slide before, direct marketing prompted 34% of consumers to start their shopping process in 2016. Direct marketing is still a very live and well medium in our industry. There's a very strategic way of doing it that works very well. It's very measurable, targets the right audiences, doesn't overwhelm people. And there's 100,000 providers in our space that do direct marketing. I would ask you to focus on the waste-conscious providers more than you would the spray and pray, right?
So give us an example. When you concentrate on the waste.
Well, you have you, for example. If you were in my target audience and I saw that you pulled up in a BMW 6 Series in the data set that I have, it's 4 years old. You didn't buy that car from me, but you serviced from me 3 years ago. I need to target you with messaging specific to your BMW 6 Series. And I tell you why it's a great opportunity for you to bring that vehicle in and for me to give you the most for your trade. But at the same time, maybe even upgrade you to a newer BMW or upgrade you to another vehicle in my lineup that makes sense for you at this time. Possibly even as low funnel as telling you what your new payment can be for that product. There's a lot of direct marketing companies out there that provide those tools. And when you can send it to somebody, hit them in their physical mailbox, but then also match that in their inbox with the same exact messaging, those 2 touch points, now you're 2 touch points into those 24 different touch points that they're shopping online.
Gotcha.
So that's what I mean by being low funnel, versus I could tell you that there's just something going on at my dealership and you could save some money. And that's efficient in certain markets. There are certain audiences where that makes sense for, but it's not efficient in all markets. It shouldn't be a standard way of doing business. So we like to focus on direct marketing as what we like to call a proactive medium, right? I feel like this huge shift when I go to dealerships and I go, well, here's your ad budget. Here's what you spend now. What did you spend 5 years ago? What was your ad breakdown? And where now it's 60% digital, 20% traditional, and 10% direct, and then 10% promotion. 5 years ago, it was 30% direct. It was 10% digital. It's completely flipped on its head. And a lot of that's because of promotion in market, because we realize that's how consumers are shopping, or at least where they're ending their searches is online. But if I drive a vehicle that I'm in love with, I like my vehicle, I have no intention on trading my vehicle in, which I currently do, there's got to be something that prompts me to start my shopping process. Direct marketing is a proactive, and email marketing for that matter, is a proactive medium. You can target consumers in market with personalized messaging, even so much as sending them to their own personalized web pages that tell them what their vehicle value is, what they can upgrade to, and then allow the rest of your mediums, the digital mediums, to be reactive once they're already in search, to push them down the funnel. You got them into consideration to consider your product. Let's get them to the place where they're engaging, where they're converting to a lead. And then let's get them to a conversion. Let's actually get them to buy a car. But you got to start somewhere. If that person wasn't in market, how do we pull them in market? How do we create demand for our products? That's what direct marketing does better than digital. To this day, it still does.
Still does.
Still does, and it still works. And the dealers that do it right benefit tremendously from it. So it's a big part of what we promote from our products, because it's still one of the only mediums that I could tell you everything about your car in a tangible product that you're either going to bring into the dealership or at least leave on your desk or your refrigerator or whatever until it's useful for you. Kind of like the Bed Bath & Beyond approach. I want to make sure I'm in front of you at all times with all mediums. As long as I'm talking to you about what the benefit is, it'll pay off for me. With audiences like equity, I could target those audiences. That's kind of the example I just gave. Telling people they have the opportunity to upgrade. Or if you just need quality pre-owned inventory in your dealership, let them know that you can buy back their vehicle if they're in a later model vehicles, 2013s and 14s. I want to get those back into my inventory. I can resell those and make some money. Auto FICO criteria. Let them know that they're approved for a loan. There's still a tremendous subprime market out there. There's a lot of consumers out there that have extremely high APRs that actually have good credit. Somebody got them, or their credit's been reformed.
Right.
They're an opportunity now to come in, either refinance their current loan or get into a new product at a lower loan rate with a lower monthly payment and a newer car. That's a win-win-win solution. Audiences like expiring lease. You go into the New Jersey, the state of New Jersey and New York and tri-state area, and you figure out real quick there's a heavy lease penetration, specifically with imports up there. A lot of people are leasing. You go to South Florida, same thing, a lot of people leasing. Well, that means that every 3 months, you should be sending something out talking about you're 3 months away from your lease. Target those audiences when it's the right time. Get them to start considering your brand. Brand loyalty is at an all-time low in our industry. Let's just put that out there. It's the lowest it has ever been by NADA standards. People do not stick to Mercedes-Benz when they buy a Mercedes-Benz like they used to, right? Because a lot of the products are comparable in quality, unfortunately, and I don't want to make anybody...
So that's something dealers have no control over? Or
they do. They do.
Point?
It's about staying in front of your customers with relevant messages, being as personalized as you possibly can, keeping them in the funnel.
Because if they're not promoting that and pushing that out,
all it takes is one touch.
Right.
And that touch be at the right time, and you can lose a customer, right? And so we focus on trying to get all those touch points into every single media mix where it makes sense, and then eliminating the ones that make the least sense from an ROI perspective. But we really want to tell the dealers that you got to focus on the mediums that deliver the best ROI and stay there and stay in front of your current customers, right? There's a strategic way to target your audiences where it's not overwhelming, and we can help you with that. I talked about one of the three of the top 5 mediums, pre-rolls being one of them.
Can we go back to what you said about staying in front of your, can you give us one example? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Direct marketing.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
There's a fine line between over-marketing and strategically marketing.
Just enough.
Direct marketing shouldn't be done to every person in your DMS every single month. Shouldn't be done. It's overwhelming. You're going to get a high opt-out rate.
And you might lose,
You're going to lose customers. People don't want to see that every single time. But there is the mindset that if I just keep hitting them, eventually one's relevant. Now, if you hit them once a quarter, a little bit less pushy. Email marketing. If you send out 3 emails a week, you're overwhelming your customers' emails. It becomes somewhat annoying. You're going to get a high unsubscribe rate. Okay? But you can send it out once a month. Or you can send out 4 different variations of emails depending on the audience segments. If you have customers that are in equity, send them an equity email. If you have customers in trade cycle that you've lost, or 36 months removed from your dealership, send them something to reactivate them. If you have customers that are not in your DMS whatsoever, but they're in your CRM because they came in but never purchased, update them on the newest offers for the vehicle that they specifically demoed. Now there's an opportunity to focus on those markets, but you got to be strategic about it. Not every message fits every audience. So we got to be pinpointed with the audiences that we send them to.
The DMS gives you just so much.
It
right?
does.
You got to work hard after that, right?
It's actually, like, for a lot of dealers, it's paralysis by analysis, right?
Right.
They jump in, they see the DMS, they see the CRM, they see this wealth of reports that they can use. And the trick really to making it work is, how do you make that data and all those data sets and all that information actionable? That's the
Right.
trick. How do you put it to action? If you're printing these reports for your sales meetings and talking about where you're losing traction and not putting it behind your marketing to regain traction, you're losing. You need to focus on what are the next steps. You set KPIs for your sales teams. You set KPIs, the OEM set KPIs for you. Set KPIs for your marketing team, your marketing vendors. Let them know, I need to get this much out of this medium. I need you to focus on these specific audiences because these audiences convert at the highest rate. This is my core audience.
Put them to work.
Huh?
Put them to work.
Put them to work.
Yep.
Put them to work. Keep them what we like to call honest, right? Like, talk to people. Relationships are great. I've worked with this guy for 10 years. Cool. What's the increase in sales you've seen the last 10 years? About 5% year over year. Okay, and that's steady, because that's actually a good. No. I mean, over the years, I've probably gained about 5% total. I'm selling 100 now. I sell about 105 on average. You got to try something new. It's not going to get you to that next level. What you've done before is not going to get you to that next step. So things like pre-roll, still to a lot of dealers when we sit with them, they don't do it. It's kind of like a foreign concept to them. It's promoted by the OEMs now. They see the OEMs promoting it. They almost see like it's annoying, and they like to use their own decisions on why they make
Right.
Investments in advertising. Well, I don't like pre-roll videos. I skip all of them. They're not important to me. But they're not important to you because you're not in trade cycle and you're not an average consumer. You really only got to succeed at about 1% to 2% of everybody that you target on any medium to be tremendously successful in our business. So if I could target 2% of my in-market audience with a message that's relevant to where they're at, I'm going to win. So with pre-roll, it's brand specific. You can focus on model specific searches. You can focus on in-market or people that are in market for service with very specific messages in your video. You could have 4 different videos that you rotate to those specific audiences depending on the searches. And that's a beautiful thing. So we promote pre-roll in a big way. We actually do it a kind of a unique way that we found is less it's more cost efficient, less wasteful. A lot of our clients are still doing a lot of traditional media. They're still spending 30, 40% of their budgets on TV and radio. We have no problem with that. If it makes sense for their business and they've seen historic success, fantastic. What we'd like to do is say, let's make sure we match their efforts from a video perspective, and then we'll be able to measure if it makes sense. Majority of consumers, when they're watching television, they're using another device.
Right.
Right? I mean, you can sit on TV. You have 4 daughters. You can sit there and watch TV with them. 2 of them have their cell phones up. You might have your cell phone and a tablet up. You're doing something different. So if you're going to rotate a commercial and you're going to spend a lot of money doing that on TV, when it airs, I want to make sure that that's the peak of my spend with TrueView or pre-roll with the same creative alignment. So when a customer's shopping online, they're on YouTube or they're shipping videos or they're about to be retargeted, I'm hitting them with that same messages, right? I'm connecting offline consumers online based off of what they're watching. It's called mirrored pre-roll purchases, and it works really, really well, and it's a very, very cost-efficient way to set your media plan for pre-roll. So that's one thing that I want to talk about, the right audience with pre-roll. Where are you spending your money right now on TV? Make sure your pre-roll is playing the same rotation, right?
Yeah, because they will search for that ad. Wait, what did that ad just say?
Exactly.
Okay, I got to go find that.
And where advertising used to be very brand-centric, here's why we're family-driven. Those are cool. They're good for intros and outros, but branding doesn't sell cars like it used to. A poll taken by Millward Brown in 2015 stated that the average consumer's most important thing that they shop for was payment. I need to figure out what's the payment on the cars that I like. I have 3 cars in my consideration set. I want to make sure that the payments are in line because I know I've budgeted $300 a month for my car payment. That has nothing to do with brand. It doesn't. So if we know that that's how consumers are shopping, let's make sure that that's the focus point of the video content that we promote. Let's make sure that's the focus point of the direct marketing that we're sending out. Let's make sure that's the focus point of the social media that we send out from a sales perspective. Let's make sure we're focusing on payment, right? Paid search, everybody's doing it. It's more competitive than it's ever been. There's very specific messaging and strategic format of how paid search should be done. Dealerships need to really focus more on ad extensions and a full funnel penetration of how they actually create their ad campaigns, rather than just trying to get the highest impression share. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of factories say, well, your impression share is 60%, you have room for growth. But if I'm a dealer, I would say, okay, my impression share is 60%, and I do believe that there is room for growth. But if my cost per lead's $20, and I'm extremely efficient with my spend, where at 80% impression share, my cost per lead was $50, what's more important to me? How many people see my ad, or the quality of my ad to the people that are relevantly searching for it and how they're converting? Some ways to make sure that you're maximizing that are utilizing call-out extensions. These are great things. So we talk about the what are we sending out? This is something that's important. Make sure that in your lease-heavy market, you talk about lease specials that are available. If you're in a military market, you're talking about military discounts that you offer. If you're in a college town, as most dealerships thrive off of, you're talking about college grad offers that you have available. Make sure that from a mobile perspective, they can literally click on a button and find out where you are using any mapping tool on their phone. And make sure that every single relevant ad extension or site link extension is available for the search, specific to the search. So if they're searching for new Ford trucks, make sure you're promoting your new Ford truck inventory rather than talking about just new cars in general. Drive them to where they're in the most quickest format going to convert. We do that. We also focused on a very mobile-friendly spend and a mobile-friendly strategy. We're mobile first, we'd like to say, because that's where consumers are shopping, and that consumption rate is just going to increase, right? It's less desktop, more mobile, and tablet. We want to make sure we give them the autonomy to text directly from the phone and start a text-to-chat option, or we give them the autonomy to call directly from the phone. And you're right now, we're having a conversation with an actual person at the dealership to the relevant department for the search. I don't push everybody to the sales department. I don't push everybody to the service department. I don't push everybody to the receptionist. If the ad is relevant to service, we need to promote that and drive that back to service, right? And we got to make sure that we have click-to-call extensions, which we talked about. The other thing that are great that Google's really promoted over the last 6 months, really the last 6 months of 2016, are call-only extensions, driving customers to call you without ever visiting your website. Just get the call. They convert at a higher rate traditionally in our business. Making sure that everything that we do, the ads are structured properly like we talked about. And then things like customer match campaigns, which are a little bit higher level, but if you're a larger group and you want to focus on, here are the people in my market that I have in my DMS that I can now serve ads on Google to. Customer match campaigns are a relevant medium. And then another extension that we've seen success with are offer ad extensions, which is kind of newer. You're not going to see too many of them. A lot of tier 2 agencies are promoting them, but if I want to promote a lease special, I can do it right there in the ad for my prospects. They can see right away, oh, the Honda Accord's $199 a month for 36 months. This is great. Click on that, takes me to the most relevant page, converts at a higher and a quicker rate. With this strategy, we've been able to take our cost per lead average across all brands down from $50, which is right now in line with the industry average. So we were about average 3 years ago, to $29, which is phenomenal. When you talk about decreasing waste, just by implementing these strategies, extended text ads, offer ads, making sure we're utilizing all site link extensions, we've been able to increase our clients' conversion rates that much for the same spends. Dealers spending $10,000 before, getting X amount of leads, are now getting that many more leads for the same spend. So, mobile and tablet display ads. This is pretty cool. It's kind of age old, and again, dealers will talk to them and they say it's kind of annoying. I hate being retargeted. You hate being retargeted until you're in market.
Right.
That's when it makes sense. I'm in market if I went to your site and I bounced from your SRP page or your VDP page. I'm in market. So let me target them with the same relevant message, whether it be a promotional message or it be a model-specific message, depending on where they bounce from. I'm in market. If I clicked on that display ad that popped up when I was on ESPN, I clicked on it and then click out of it, I might be in market. Let me make sure that if I land on your site and then I bounce, I'm targeting those consumers with relevant ads, right? I'm following them around, keeping them in the funnel for what they shop for. And then, so this was outside of the 3 out of top 5 that we talked about originally. But I think this is probably the most important and most progressive medium in the automotive space. Facebook is literally competing with Google right now for ad budget more than any other provider in the space. They're gonna put a little dent in their business. And the reason is because now you can actually track leads the same way you could in Google. You can push leads directly to dealership CRMs. A big part of that is making sure that you're not wasteful with your Facebook spend. So we talk to a lot of guys like, yeah, I'm doing Facebook advertising. Okay, what are you doing? I'm hitting everybody in a 20-mile radius. They revert back to that radius. Well, there's a way you can really drill down the Facebook using their audience insights tools. You can say, here's my core audience. I'm going to plug those in. I only want to focus on in-market prospects, people who own import vehicles, people who have these type of consumer shopping behavior. And then literally target that market by either classification of vehicle, even down to make and model, depending if you have the Oracle integration. The other thing beautiful about Facebook is you can upload a manifest of customers that are in your lost or inactive file, right, in your DMS. These people haven't been in my dealership in 36 months, but I have emails for them. And I'm emailing them regularly, but I'm not getting traction. Upload that email manifest, and Facebook will now match their emails to profiles. And we can target them now on their news feed with the same promotion that we do via direct marketing, via online display. So there's a tremendous amount of cross-channel marketing capabilities with Facebook that you're not seeing with other mediums right now.
Thank you, DMS.
Yeah, right? Thank you, DMS. Again, reverting back to the most basic and attainable data you have in the dealership. Branding. You want to brand your dealership. You want to talk about a specific model launch. You want to talk to in-market audiences for those specific classifications of vehicles. Very simple ads. You can sign up, you can claim offers or get quotes immediately out of the Facebook tool. Very simple, step A to B. For service, customers you want to reactivate, pull back into your service drive. Now you can focus on offer ads. They can claim these offers either through their Facebook feed, or they can actually come to the dealership and claim these offers, showing you the Facebook ads that they have. This is great. You can even identify op codes, and again, you now have the ability to track that and push that back to your CRM in real time. You don't need to manage the leads any different than you historically have. This, to me, with the amount of rich data that Facebook has and the 1.8 billion people that are on Facebook and 1.5 that use it every single day, upwards of 8 times a day, is probably the easiest and most cost-efficient way to directly market to your in-market audience or your core audience once you've identified that. So I had to add this in because we feel more strongly about Facebook as an advertising medium in 2017 than we have about a lot of different mediums that have come down the funnel. It is becoming a big part of our strategic plan, and we're seeing the dividends for our clients with cost per lead averages of $35, $34, which is comparable to our paid search cost per lead averages, but it's really more granular data and segmented audiences. We talk about where to market, right? And dealerships talk about this all the time, or when to market, excuse me, I apologize. The other W, all right? When do I market? This looks like a lot of information. This is an annual strategic planning calendar. Before the beginning of the year, you project how many cars you want to sell. By the end of the year, you know what it cost you to sell every car. You know what your cost per unit sold was. I spent $1 million in advertising. It cost me $380 per unit based off of my advertising budget to hit my numbers that I hit in 2016. If you just focus on being more efficient, focus on the right audiences, lower your cost per unit, and then allocate that ad budget again for the following year. But then you need to go as deep as, when do I want each medium to air? Very simple question to ask. Go to your marketing providers and say, when's the best time to deploy a Facebook campaign? When is the best time that you've seen with open rates, click-through rates, to deploy emails throughout the month? When's the best time to hit direct marketing for in-market customers, trade cycle customers? When's the best time to promote my display? When is the best time to start that? Is it an all-month-long thing? And if they can't give you that information, switch providers. You got to be able to, as a provider in our industry, you got to be able to evolve and pivot. You have to learn what works best, so you're always providing your clients the best mediums for their ad dollars. So an ad budget to us is set for the year. Now, we know dealers like month to month. We're completely comfortable with that. We're used to it, right? You got to be able to prove yourself. But can we put together a blueprint of the house before we change how the bathroom's laid out?
Right.
Let's do that. And then throughout the build out, we identify the bathroom's not really where we want it or as big as we want it. We can always tweak it. But the foundation.
And dealers will do that.
Yeah.
Throughout the year.
Oh,
Okay.
Every month.
After 90
and we
days.
actually do it for them. So we'll come back and say, you actually need to spend more here or less here, or let's reallocate this budget from here to here. We're seeing a lower cost per lead, and actually those leads are converting to sales at a higher rate for you, Mr. Dealer. Does that make sense to you? And majority of the time, it does. So really, forecast a year like you would projected sales. Do it with your marketing. If you're not doing that, you're behind. That way your team can get themselves in line with what mediums are we focusing on, right? How do I adjust my presentations to these mediums, right? Majority of car sales for new car salesmen start with family and friends. You know, if I want to retweet something or forward a Facebook share ad or do anything to my friends, that's a great way to get some new cars sold. So it's all the way down from starters to people, seasoned vets in the industry.
Same thing with service?
Same thing with service.
Okay.
Service is equally as important, right? Part of this ad plan needs to be service focused. And I say every medium that's targeting captive ownership of the vehicles you sell should have service integrated into the actual messaging itself. And then, so this is a question we get a lot too, is why are these specific mediums best for me? Or why would these audiences buy from me is more important, the question. And a lot of it has to do with, this is where the messaging and the creative comes into place. Identify what historically has worked well for you. If you have heavy lease penetration, you need to make sure that your lease payments are on everything that you're doing. All right, identify creatively what you want to promote to market. But I would say the one thing is, once you identify your value proposition, once you identify your audience, is to make sure everything that you do says the same exact thing. No disconnect in your audience, no disconnect in your advertising, no disconnect in your offers. So that's a big part of the plan, is why these customers buy from me, because your offer has been validated on the 24 different channels that I shopped. There was no disconnect. I know I can lease this car for this amount, all the way through to the VDP page that I landed on with that specific model.
Is that a thing you see a lot of?
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of it has to do with multiple vendors.
Gotcha.
I promote this product, I do it this way, here's the message that works the best. I promote this product, I do it this way. Where if you could consolidate your vendors to one creative element or one operating, or make sure that they all work together at least, you would have more consistency in your advertising. You would have more consistency in your response. And then the last question is really, how do I know if it's working? Very simple. Just like anything else. If you want to lose weight, you talked about working out this morning, right? If you work out 4 or 5 times a week, I'm sure you probably weigh yourself a couple times a week. You're measuring yourself so you can better yourself. Same thing with your advertising. It needs to be constantly measured, constantly investigated. And the beautiful thing about all those technology platforms that I told you in NADA is that they all should come with some type of reporting, performance reporting, and for the most part, it should be real time. So you can change and pivot as you need to. We provide that across every medium that I mentioned and 10 more, but at the same time, there are a couple other providers in the space that should have it for every medium that they promote. But that needs to be a big question when you're first talking about a marketing provider. So what we've seen with this, year over year, our clients have seen an increase of 15% in leads, an increase in click-through rates from all the digital advertising of about 20% across the different mediums, 58% decrease in cost per lead, and 24% of their ad waste or zips or markets they were targeting eliminated to increase efficiency. Those are tremendous numbers when you're talking about $1 million ad budget for a year. So that's it. That's kind of how you identify audiences, how you market to them, what tools you can use right now, what reports you should expect to get back from your providers to be more efficient in 2017 with your strategic marketing plan. Hopefully it was informative.
And take advantage of that DMS.
Oh, take advantage of the DMS as much as possible. It is
heavily reliant.
We are heavily reliant on historical information to identify what makes the most sense going forward, yes.
Eric Mercado, he is the VP of Business Development with Force Marketing. We appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
And appreciate Force Marketing. There's the information. If you want to contact Eric, we'll give you another 30 seconds. But once again, thank you for that. And we appreciate you being here.
No worries, man.
And
we appreciate you having me.
We appreciate you tuning in as well. We apologize for being a tad late at the beginning, but thank you. We've gone a little bit more longer than we expected, but that's okay. It's information that dealers expect, and it's important. Again, Eric Mercado, I'm Joe Gunn. We appreciate you tuning in. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and happy Valentine's Day. And we'll see you back here on CPT News tomorrow.
Take care, guys.